Hello and welcome to ARN. This is Paul Bromwell. I want to welcome all of you for joining us this evening. I see we have many of you here, and I appreciate you being here with us. As always, we are coming to you live from the Four Horsemen Network and One True Sport. But I could not do this without my friend, the founder of the Four Horsemen. He's the Hall of Famer, multi-time Hall of Famer, the creator of the Spine Buster, the 1A tag team wrestling, and now he's my tag team partner. I'm so proud to say that each and every time we get together. He's Arn Anderson. Arn, how are you this week, man? It's so good to see you.
Well, there's always, every week to week, there's something to be thankful of in there.
Oh, so true. Well said.
Um, be easy to attach yourself to the negative stuff, but a lot of positive stuff, which is more important. North Carolina, South Carolina, parts of Georgia have just been decimated with that hurricane. And I mean, it has really destroyed, so many lives. And you can sit there and think about it and just, man, it'll beat you half to death until you watch the news and watch the people that have stepped up and came from different places that might have had damage themselves, and they're up here helping the people pull their lives back together. And just to see how many heroes they are, just neighbors, they've lost everything but are walking what used to be their neighborhood, trying to help other people. It just replenishes your thought process, and your humanity is a wonderful thing when you see people that step up and do the things that are being done these days. And my gosh, with all the negatives, those, you got to look at the positives. And I just want to say thank you to all those first responders, all those neighbors, all those people from out of town that have left their homes and left their lives and came up to where we are and helping us. And God bless, and thank God we, here in Charlotte, we missed it, and thank God. It was just a miracle. So.
Well said, Arn. We were sitting here just kind of talking about some things and sharing some thoughts, and it always kept coming back to aches, pains, busy schedules. All of it just pales in comparison to what so many people are going through right now. And unfortunately, as we record this here on Tuesday night, October the 8th, are about to go through in Florida with Milton on the way. It's just so sad to hear. And you just hope everyone can do their best to get out of harm's way. But, and then that things don't happen the way that it looks like it could happen with these storms. Just incredible devastation and loss. And as you said, thoughts, hearts, prayers, good vibes, whatever, we are just thinking of them. Our hearts are heavy right now, as you and I were talking earlier before we even clicked record with some of these folks. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, just, hey, for all of us that are able and are willing, just say a prayer for everybody.
Absolutely.
Everybody's going to need it.
Well said, Arn. And that's where we wanted to start for sure this evening. That's what we're thinking about. Those are the bigger things. And thankfully, there are times too where we get to unplug a little bit and have a little bit of fun and talk about the good old days. Tonight, we're going to do that here with you. And we want to say thank you to all of you who seemingly appear to be fine and doing well and have decided to join us again for another episode of ARN. And we just appreciate all of you. I think this is as good a time as any, ARN, to just say how thankful we are. Once again, we try to, as often as we think about it and have folks on the show, we have a great live audience here. Comments are flowing in. I see all of you. And folks that listen to the show after the fact, we couldn't do it without you. And I know ARN is so grateful for your support. And Arn, I'm going to use it as a transition. Speaking of, you want to say something? Go ahead, because I was going to transition.
No. Well, through all the negativity, I was blessed with being invited down to Bad Blood.
There we go.
In Atlanta, which Tully was there, and Scott Steiner and Miss Jackie, a lot of legends they brought in just to honor and let us know that they appreciated our contributions to the business. And thankful to Hunter for that. I got to talk to Cody for a few minutes. Man, was he busy. Just a lot of my friends, Jamie Noble, people that were still working there, Adam Pierce, all the people in the background that were making that thing fly, and the incredible talent. Punk and Drew McIntyre started that show off, man, and good God, what a brawl / fight / mugging / everything you would expect Hell in the Cell to be. So thanks for having me down. It allowed me to tell a bunch of people backstage and throughout the day, thank you for all that company has done for me, and much appreciative.
I'm so glad you said that. That's where I was going, Bad Blood, because a lot of our listeners and folks watching right now and group chats and what have you, could not wait to hear some of your thoughts about Bad Blood and your experience. We saw you sitting by Tully and Corey Graves. I loved it. Referred to you as the Brain Busters, and it was all the feels. Both of you back in WWE, sitting side by side, the Brain Busters together again. You gotta love how they harken back. It's like watching, seeing that old rock band come back together again, sitting side by side, and all of us as fans just get those goosebumps. What was it like? Because not only you said before you got to see the Steiners, but now here's Tully, your tag team partner for years, fellow Hall of Famer, sitting side by side with you at a WWE event.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, it's the first event that he and I have been as far as what was put on by WWE. Since our 2012 Hall of Fame induction. I think that's the first time we've done a few Comic-Cons and a few things like that, but nothing with WWE. And that was just, it's been a long time. And
yeah,
it was cool.
So cool. And then, just the pictures that are floating around. We see DDP. He was heavy on the camera, and he got some great shots. You sitting in the suite with the big smile on your face. Classic picture of you, Tully, CM Punk, and DDP together in the back. Yep. Come on, man. That was right after his brutal fight, the mugging, as you called it.
And the fact that he actually wanted our opinion of what we thought, for a guy in his position, that was very humbling.
That's where I was headed, because he is, love him or hate him, whatever, he respects the business, and especially and respects what the old timers have done for the business. He still watches Crockett and things like I've watched him on Instagram stories. He's running on a treadmill watching classic matches from the Crockett days and things like that. So you want to talk about someone that has a respect for the business at CM Punk, and for you to say now that he asked you immediately what you guys thought about the match just solidifies that.
Well, there's much to learn about the generation before you. I know I learned something every day. So the fact that he actually thought it had merit, and it was very humbling, and very appreciative that he looks at the business the way he does, and just pretty much the overall mentality of the company now is just refreshing to see.
You said that the last time, that it just has a completely different feel. That welcome home reunion vibe, family, same thing this time around, Arn, all the same feels and vibe, everything.
100%. Just respectful to each other, respectful to the legends that were there. You can just see that they're respectful to the fans. It was just a very positive note.
So good. And again, and they're just doing such a really nice job of honoring the legends. The fact that they took time to show everyone in the crowd, from Lillian Garcia, Jacqueline, all the folks that were there. And then of course you and Tully, the bright spots for yours truly, a personal fan of you both. And when Arn, it was funny because I was like, it's come out that you're going to be in Atlanta. You said, how do you know? I said, the dirt sheets it's out there.
Well, you're one of the guys, there's a few people that love the business, yourself, Tony Hunter, friends of mine that I know like surprises. Mm-hmm. And that's the reason I don't give it away and tell you in advance, because it's like, those of us, that's the whole thing. We like the surprises, the mystery of what's going to happen. That's the reason I didn't tell you. No offense.
Oh, I'm not offended, not hurt by it at all. I think it's cool, man. And I'm just super excited for you. at this point of your career and where you're at. And I know what your focus is your son and everything you're trying to do. And to see these nice things still happening for you, it just puts a big old smile on my face as your pal. So I'm happy for you, man.
Well, thanks.
And I know, and because we already have a question, so I'm going to ask you right now, because DDP put it on his social media right after that he signed his Legends contract that night. So I'm going to ask you right now, I'm going to put you in the hot seat. Arn, have you been offered a Legends contract yet?
No, but that's okay. You know, I haven't had that one-on-one conversation about that in particular. It's all right just for me popping in time to time if that's what they have for me. I wouldn't be disappointed if that's what it was, but you never know. We'll see.
That's right. You got to love the wrestling business. Anything's possible.
That's more surprises, I guess.
There
Just
you go.
depends on who it's a surprise for.
I tell you what, it's a pretty good sign. We've seen you at 2 pay-per-views now in the last few months. I'd say that's a pretty good sign. They kind of dig you and dig your work. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to pause right here though, real quick, because we have some super chats, and there's one that I want. The timing of it right now is perfect since we're talking WWE product and we haven't, jumped into our main topic this week, and that is from our buddy Michael Jensen. Michael, I want to thank you so much for the super chat. First of all, we appreciate you. And we're going to stay on WWE topic because Arn, he recognizes the fact that you have shown a lot of respect for Gunther the last few shows. You're a big fan of his work, and he wants to know, how pumped are you to see him square up against Cody? Arn, it's going to be at Crown Jewel for that new Crown Jewel championship. Cody Rhodes against Gunther, the two champions of the brand right now, fighting for this new big mega Crown Jewel championship. How pumped are you for that matchup?
You think it could get any bigger or better than that?
I don't, man. It's the biggest matchup. If it, champion versus champion right now that they have active. So let's do it. Excited.
They got a lot of young studs that work for that company. He just caught my eye in particular because, man, he just will stand in there and just bang it out with you. And everything he does is solid and has malice. He's just a really salty guy. And believe it or not, it was late in the afternoon. I have never had a chance to introduce myself to him or meet him personally as of yet. I didn't get, our paths never crossed at SummerSlam. And, he was sitting in catering late in the afternoon. So I just went over and introduced myself. And I just said, hey, I like your stuff, man. You are a cement mixer. And he seemed to get a kick out of that. Whether he knew what a cement mixer was or not, I don't know. But it was meant to be. He's a hard ass. And I like that. Always have.
So that's cool. So you got to meet Gunther. Very cool. I love hearing that.
And Tully, or not Tully, but Cody needs challenges.
Yes.
He needs tests. He needs to be able to go beyond what he even believes he's able to. And I know he's bet on himself and he's confident in his abilities, but when you have a guy like that, man, that's going to be a different kind of match. It's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be slick. You're going to have to stand in there and bang on that one. So look forward to it.
There you go. Well, listen, real quick before we, and Darren, I'm going to get to your super chat. I promise you. Thank you. We will come back to that. We're going to move on from Bad Blood and WWE because I know what else you love talking about, Arn, and that's Brock and some of the appearances that you have coming up. The first one I'm going to throw up here on the screen. It's coming. It's October 26th. It's Throwdown in Tatertown. I love that. The East Davidson High School. There you can see it on the screen. Thomasville, North Carolina. Meet the Stars at 5, first match at 7, and you can get your tickets at amlwrestling.com. And it's a fundraiser for East Davidson High School athletic boosters. Very cool, Arn. And you'll be there, you and Brock both, right?
Absolutely. I'll be signing autographs. I'll be on the early meet and greet, and I'll go out with Brock for him and CW's match. So fully invested in it, and can't wait. Cannot wait.
That's the first one. And then the second and the last one that we'll cover here for the show before we jump into May 1995, guys, is Retro Toy Convention. And this is in November. And this is prior to WrestleCade, which you'll be down in Winston-Salem for WrestleCade. But this is in Greenville, South Carolina. No stranger to Greenville. It's you and Brock, 22nd through the 24th. You've mentioned before, Arn, that you're really having a lot of good success and a lot of fun at these toy conventions. And here's another one that both of you are going to be at. I'm sure you'll have those comic books in hand with you there.
100%. The Comic Cons and stuff are, just another avenue to get to more fans, and having the comic book, which is / life story, autobiography in comic book form. It's awesome. In Greenville, I don't know if you know, has really become a Renaissance town.
Oh, yeah.
My wife loves the shopping downtown, apparently. It is very eclectic, and it'll give her something good to do. Her and maybe even Smokey get to go for a walk. Who knows? But Greenville, we can't wait to be there. A lot of great wrestling fans. One of the better companies, one of the better towns that we used to run, Jim Crocker Promotions, and WWE, just as good. It's just a great wrestling town.
Yeah, I have a sister-in-law and a brother-in-law that have lived in Greenville for years, so I've been fortunate enough to go down and check out. And you're absolutely right. Their downtown area is booming. It's beautiful, and shops and restaurants. Come on, now we're talking, buddy. So a good spot for sure.
100%. So we look forward to just basically invading Greenville.
Invading Greenville. Well, speaking of invading, Yambag Jones just showed up into the chat. So he has invaded. All of our friends are here, from Darren Staley to Eddie Prather. Darth Payne is here. Remember my question, Paul, if you get a chance, retype it here in the chat, Darth. And I promise you that I will. I know exactly who you are, Darth, but if you could put your question, I promise you I will get to it, but I'll need you to repost here because I got pages and pages of notes to go through. Thanks to the research guy. We call him Andrew Hermes. He has done a lot of significant research for May 1995. And I'm going to do my best, Andrew, to make sure that I don't miss a jot or a tittle or dot an I or cross a T. But we got about 40 minutes here, so I'm going to try to do this. Yambag says that he thinks he noticed you cringe, Arn, when I said that he was here with us. Is that true? Did you cringe a little bit when I threw out Yambag's name?
He makes me a little nervous.
He ain't gonna lie, Yambag. He's a little, his ass cheeks just tightened up a little bit in the seat. Okay?
I am not afraid to say I'm afraid.
Has no idea what field the Yambag's coming from. Left field, right field, who knows? Darren, it's your job too. He's the nipple man. We never know what these guys are going to say, but we're here to have a good time. So let's do that. Let's jump into the show. Actually, I'm coming back to you, Darren, because if I don't, I'll never get to your super chat. So let's throw it up here. He had a statement that he made. He said, Paul can attest that here in Wilkes County, when my power was out, I was in the dark texting him about how it would affect ARN and the ARN show. So he was one of those. Darren Staley was one of those without power, and he's texting, and he was wondering if it's going to affect Arn Anderson, our man. Is he okay? And I said, Arn's in Charlotte, and I think from everything I've been able to look at, the Doppler radar and everything, that they were secure. But Darren was worried about you, Arn.
I won't even mention it, but I'll have to mention it. The only thing we lost was Wi-Fi. No,
okay.
We did not lose any electricity, and that is so minimal.
Sure.
It's not even worth mentioning, but
yep.
God looked after us, and no major issues, no damage to our home. We had electricity the whole time, so good deal.
Darren, there you go. We want to make sure we get that in. Let's jump in, guys, to May 1995, because if I don't, Andrew Hermes is going to throw me in a headlock. Lots of good stuff we have here, though, for you. So I thought what I would do, Arn, if it's okay with you, I'd like to catch you and our audience up with what we talked about April 1995. Is that okay? Because it feels like it was several weeks ago. A lot happened since then.
I trust your instincts, young fella.
All right. Well, first off, Ric Flair was reinstated by WCW for in-ring competition. You, Flair, and the big man Vader formed a new faction to take on Hogan, Randy Savage, and that stud, the Renegade. Okay. And then we also talked about you wrestling that sexy, hip swiveling, dancing machine, Alex Wright. And you and he tussled for the TV title and how you had a lot of respect for Das Wonder Kid. You remember sharing how you respected him as a performer?
Well, he was a young man, new to the business. However, he had that second generation. His dad was in the business, so he didn't come in blind, you know. But he came in and he had a lot of intestinal fortitude, I might say.
He did. He had intestinal fortitude. He had charisma, nature boy. Remember, he had kind of noticed his talent and was a proponent. He was, someone that said, "Hey, I would love to have him as part of this company." So really, really good young talent that was plucked by it. But if someone Flair identified someone that he would like. We also briefly touched on WCW's event with New Japan Wrestling. They were working with Antonio Inoki. They had that big 2-day festival, and as part of that International Sports and Culture Festival in North Korea, massive success. A total attendance on 315,000. For this 2-day event, 150 on the first night, 160,000 on the second night. Flair wrestled Antonio Inoki in the main event of night 2. It was his return to the ring, and he would compete in the U.S. not until Slamboree pay-per-view. But you weren't over there for that event. You made it clear. You also didn't prop the feet up on the couch and watch it. But you remember and recall Collision in Korea was a big deal for WCW at the time.
Yeah, and I'm sure the Japanese office handpicked who they wanted, to come over and
be there.
And that was a good chance to get like the Steiners and Scott Norton and some of the guys that had been over there and working for Japan meant a lot to the Japan company, sure. Inoki. So by using those guys coming from WCW exclusively, it was just a good chance to kind of polish up their own product. That makes any sense.
No, it does. It makes total sense. So that's what we talked about. Quick recap of April. Let's talk about the top line creative here in May of 1995, because we're gearing up for Slamboree. That's the big event. The main event's going to be huge, Arn. Flair and Vader with you in their corner facing Hogan and Savage, who had the Renegade with them. And it felt like a dream match, right? It's the story's been building for a while now. Do you think the company had done a good job, if you can recall, all these years ago? Do you think they did a good job setting up this match? And is there anything that you would have changed or done differently?
I don't think having Renegade and myself ringside added anything to it, if you want to know the truth.
Mm-hmm.
It just was like a neon sign that we might get involved, and there was hanky-panky there that they didn't need. I mean, that would have been a hell of a tag match just on its own merits.
It would have. And, and like you said, you're kind of like add-ons, just add-ons standing outside of the ring. And now you also, I'm kind of curious that your thoughts, what do you think about Flair getting involved in this Vader Hogan storyline? Because I'm of the thought, and I'm curious, I'm going to throw this out to the fans. What do you guys think? Do you think that WCW did the most of what they could in terms of a Vader Hogan feud? It feels like now we're here we are, we're entering, Ric Flair back into the mix already. But I seriously feel like there was money left on the table with a Vader Hogan kind of more of a longer drawn out feud. What are your thoughts on that?
A program for 4 months, 5 months.
Yes.
You could have certainly got that kind of mileage out of that, because once you go there and you move on, it's hard to go back to it. Once you take it into a tag match or a 6-man or whatever, you kind of watered it down as far as being single matches, I think.
I want to hear from our folks in the chat. What do you think? Vader, Hogan, do you wish you could have seen more between the two? Or do you think we got just what we needed out of Vader and Hogan? Because Obviously what we're doing here, we're armchair quarterback. Hindsight's 2020. Kent Freeman says, I personally think they could have milked it a lot more. I mean, think about the talent of Vader and the persona and the popularity of Hogan. This was like a perfect built 80s big man always. That's the WWE drew house show money on that big man versus, Hogan, whether it was Andre, whether it was John Studd, whether it was, when they brought in Big Boss Man when he came in. Darren Staley says, for me, meh. Not him, not necessarily into it. But you got to think, especially Vader also brought a different element, Arn. He could do moonsaults. He was an athletic big man as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I just remember it, even though I was in awe of the athletic ability that he had for a guy that size, I didn't necessarily agree with him working that style. That was a style meant for smaller guys, the Rey Mysterios of the world. If you're going to stand up on the top rope and do a whatever it's called and flip and land on top of somebody, feels like to me it should be a smaller guy that needs that momentum to knock down a bigger guy. Should be the psychology that goes into that, if that makes any sense. Big guys like that feel like they need to hit a moonsault or whatever. It just, I don't know. It was hard for me to grasp that, even though it was
impressive
and incredible to watch. And my God, how does a 450-pound guy do that? Still, psychology-wise, who knows?
I know, and I understand exactly what you're saying there, psychology-wise. I'm just on the fence too, because I feel like as a fan, there's still that, holy shit, can you believe that big man can do that type of stuff? And him kind of being almost like one of the first guys that size to be able to do that. And I guess that's probably why, how they sold the Vader character. No one else could do what he could do.
And just skipping ahead to another guy, it's a similar example of the way I felt when Big Show came along as the Giant. That guy almost immediately could drop kick off the top rope. Now, was that something phenomenal to see in practice? Yes. But I also told him, and he will tell you, what are you doing? Why would a giant need to come off the top? Don't do that.
You're making yourself smaller almost, right?
It's like you don't need your full body weight to mow a man down. You need to stay on your feet and just destroy everything and everybody that gets in your way.
Got it.
And he quit because I saw the potential of him getting injured, him injuring somebody, and it just didn't fit a giant. You wouldn't see Andre drop kicking off the top. It's just one of those things. You wouldn't see Kane. You wouldn't see Undertaker. The big guys in the business, just me, it was just hard to grasp.
Yeah, they'd certainly, like Kane, Undertaker, they would certainly do some athletic type things. But to your point, when your name is the Giant, and especially our last recollection of a Giant was Andre. Andre carried himself like the Giant, physically imposing. And if you start dropping, again, I think it goes back to it just makes you feel smaller than what you are. You want to carry yourself as a Giant versus, trying to do double drop kicks like Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson. That's not a good for your brand.
Well, Big Show, getting off subject a little bit, but he could do a nip up, for God's sakes.
Unreal.
Well, if the Giant's doing that, what does that leave for the small guys?
Well, that's a good point too. Yeah. Doesn't make it look as impressive for the smaller guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, love it. Scott George makes a good point here. He says Vader seemed to run his course by 96, in his opinion. He said if he got to Hogan a couple years earlier, then yes, he would have been all for it. And remember those early 90s with some of the clashes, and we've talked about it, well documented here on the show, that he had with Sting. So there you go, Scott. Good point. And we're going to talk about Paul Wight here in a second, because He makes his debut here at Slamboree. Let's talk about the U.S. Championship for a minute, because WCW is running a tournament. It had been vacated by Vader, and as part of moving Vader into the role with Flair, he was stripped of the U.S. title. So here are some of the participants for the United States Championship. I don't know if you remember this or not. You have Steve Austin, Sting, Meng. There you go, Sting, Meng, Brian Pillman, Alex Wright. Ric Flair's in the tournament, but you know who else is in the tournament? That's right. You're in the tournament, my friend.
Me?
Arn Anderson, right there, is in the tournament for the United States Championship.
I'm sure I got knocked out in the first round.
Well, you didn't win it. I'll tell you that right now. Research guy, I know we're getting ahead. Just go ahead and tell me if you can remember, because I certainly can't with 85,000 minutes in front of me. Who ended up winning this tournament just for funsies? Or if we know when Arn got knocked out and who, for a little trivia, that would be fun. But yeah, so you were in the United States tournament back in May 1995.
Don't recollect that. Which
Okay.
means I must not have did very well.
Sting wins the United States Championship in that tournament. That makes a ton of sense. Thanks, Andrew.
All right.
There you go.
Good choice.
Let's talk about a friend of yours and mine, and that's Kevin Sullivan. All right. He was preparing to introduce the Dungeon of Doom, which that's going to shake some things up. And Sting, by the way, he comes through again, clutch. Great American Bash, wins the title, and he defeats Meng. Sting defeats Meng for the U.S. Championship. All right, let's move on. Sullivan, our buddy, he's preparing to introduce the Dungeon of Doom, and it's going to shake some things up. So that's going on. And the guy that you just been talking about, Paul Wight, makes his debut at Slamboree. And so there's a lot of buzz around him. Fans are curious to see how he's going to fit in. So May 1995 is busy, Arn. It's exciting. When I talk about Paul Wight making his debut, when I talk about a United States Championship tournament, Vader, Hogan, what's the biggest thing? Das Wonder Kid. What stands out to you as, man, this was a big deal, May 1995? Anything that stands out to you? Is it Paul Wight? Is it Big Show's debut?
I think it has to be, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so too.
You don't see guys like that
No.
ever walking around. I mean, he's over 7 feet tall. He's 400 pounds, but he was completely symmetrical. He didn't move like a guy that couldn't move because he was so big. He was
right. We've seen those in the business.
When he walked in that locker room, when I saw him the first time in Chicago before he ever started with the company, he walked in and just leaned back against the door. He had on a full-length leather coat, long hair, looked at him, and the guy just looked like, I went, oh, my God. I don't know who that is or why he's here, but I hope to God he's not here to kill anybody, because he looks the part.
Carl in the chat here says he feels like Paul Wight was misused.
Oh, you could have shoved him as hard as you wanted to. If you wanted to get him over, put him in a match with Vader.
So in your opinion, though, do you think, looking back again, that's what we do here, Armchair, do you think WCW misused him for his time there until he left and went to the WWE? Should they have used him differently?
He could have been pushed a lot harder.
Yes.
And I'm sure when Vet saw him on the WCW TV, he went to whoever he had to, let's get that guy.
No doubt about it. I mean, he hasn't, to your point, you haven't seen anybody like that, agility-wise, size-wise, intimidation-wise, since Andre.
Yeah, just overall look, overall everything, because he didn't come from the Indies. He came virtually out of nowhere.
Doesn't happen nowadays, guys, that's for sure. Arn, I want to talk a little bit more about the United States title, because before Hogan came on the scene, it was held by some of the best wrestlers that worked in the company, guys who were seen as top contenders in WCW. They were going to be, the next up for the world title, if you will. With the recent tournament, it seemed like a great chance for WCW to elevate some of that younger talent. But here, as outlined and as Andrew shared with us, you got Sting and you got Meng. Sting wins the championship. Do you think there was a missed opportunity to maybe take one of those younger guys and use this as an opportunity to elevate them into a higher role? Or is Sting kind of like, hey, let's put the title on him and give it to a guy we know is proven?
Well, you had to always take care of Sting just simply because he was the flagship for the company. You know, you had to keep him good. Now, the choice of opponents, was Rick Rude working for the company?
At this time, I believe Rude was gone. At this point, it was injured and done with WCW.
So who else was in that tournament?
You were, and Sting beat you in the opening round of the tournament. I think that was where we should rebook this shit right there.
Okay.
But we'll go. Well, let me. We have Brian Pillman,
All right.
Steve Austin. Okay, Alex Wright, and then you have the veterans: yourself, Sting, Ric Flair, and we already mentioned Ming was in it.
Might have been a good spot to elevate an Austin.
Hello, yeah. There's another one Vince was obviously salivating over.
Yeah, I mean that would have been a good choice of the guys that needed the shot in the arm at that time. He would be one of those.
Andrew confirmed that yes, Rick Rude was out. He was retired by injury, so he definitely was gone. But Austin, Brian Pillman, even U.S. Why not? At this point, 95. Sure, come on, let's do it.
Absolutely.
All right, so we have that, and we talk about that. We're going to talk more about that tournament in June of 1995, and we'll have some fun. Andrew reminds us that Austin was already U.S. champion for nearly a year, from 93 to Fall Brawl 94. But you know what? I don't think it would have been bad to give him the title run again. Why not? Further solidify him. They weren't going to put the world belt on him. They brought Hogan in for that. So I don't know, man.
Well, if he had already had a run, which I wasn't aware of because I didn't have the history in front of me, but
long time ago, Arn, we forgive you. Totally.
Yes, you're going to have to because it's not going to pop back in my head.
We have wrestling savants that are here. Just they're like Wikipedias.
Then maybe it would have been a time for Pillman to get that nod if Austin had already been there.
Andrew points out in the chat, WCW hadn't made Ming either. Where's Connor? Oh, very nice, Marvelous Revolution. He's too busy. So there you go. We got that, and Ming could have been another. What about Ming being U.S. champion? That's a fun one.
If you would have built him.
Yeah.
I mean, we knew he was the baddest man on the planet. We all knew that. I'm not sure the fans all knew that.
Yeah.
And he hadn't been given that push where, like you did a guy that you were really trying to have to get over. A bunch of wins over a bunch of opponents that were good opponents. He hadn't had that kind of push.
Well, we'll go to the super chat. Let's throw it up. Our buddy Bryant Harems is here, and he says, I know Arn holds the TV title in high regards, but does Arn wish he had a run with the U.S. title in his career, joining the list of great champs?
I don't think I missed anything. Unless the idea was you were going to be the next guy in line for a shot at the world title. If that was the case and it actually did go to fruition, then it's something different.
There you go. And let's keep moving then. All right, we'll continue on with the notes. Slamboree 1995, it's on. It takes place at St. Petersburg, Florida. 7,000 fans in attendance, Arn. It takes place at the Bayfront Arena. Any memories from St. Petersburg, Arn? It seems like more wrestling used to be there than it is today.
It was kind of the Tampa. It was like the same fans would be in Tampa that would be there because it's just across the bridge. And it was like it was the same. A lot of the fans, but a lot of the fans were just from St. Pete, so it's a different market. And just I don't know. It's just one of those pleasurable places like the rest of Florida that the guys just enjoyed working because they enjoyed being in Florida.
You're there and you're back at Slamboree and you're working the card. You're once again working against Alex Wright. And he's challenging you for the TV title at Slamboree. The match goes 11 minutes, 36 seconds. You win. And this, Arn, is going to be Alex Wright's first loss on television. And the biggest, most significant part of this match is where you fake the punch. He lowers the head and you get that DDT for the clean win. That's one you'll never forget.
That has received more praise than a lot of things that I did in my career. And I guess it was because it looked tricky. I sucked him in, and nobody saw it coming, and it worked.
It's and you're right. It's one of those. It's a GIF. It's all over the internet, all over social media. Was that a plan? Did that just something that just struck you to do in the middle of the match? Something that you thought about, a spot that you thought about prior to jumping in, or talk about that finish?
No, I knew if I could get him to go for the, getting out of the way. That at that time I was using DDT for a finish. And I knew if I could sucker him in somehow it was more like was going to throw a punch and hit him in the mouth. And when he ducked and looked up real quick, I just got there.
It certainly did. And pal, it was, again, as I said, it's all over social media. Someone's going to post this right now while we're talking about it and tag you in on social media. And just a fun spot. And again, you're still talked to about it to this day at Comic-Cons and events. And what a fun spot for sure.
Well, I mean, it's okay to do something clever if you're a heel. If it looks like you're doing it out of desperation because you're getting your ass kicked, which was the case.
He hadn't been in WCW for a full year yet, Arn. How impressed with you were you with Alex at this point?
He had a lot of good babyface skills. I didn't know about that dancing thing, where that came from. But hey, it's whatever he thought fit his character, and he was so young. He looked like a baby out there, and he had good mechanics, good babyface, sold well, good offense for a babyface. So,
is he someone that you got to coach a little bit behind stage, or did you have that type of relationship with Alex?
I think so. I think we got along fine. I don't remember the conversations, if any, that we had. But he, for just being in the business a short time, he had a lot of skills.
Well, buddy, we'll transition out of Das Wonder Kid and talk a little bit more about the creation of the Dungeon of Doom, Paul Wight, and Kevin Sullivan. He faces off against Ed Leslie, who you might remember as the man with no name, or the former Brutus Beefcake. The match lasts about 6 minutes, and it seemed to have wrapped up their time together as part of the Three Faces of Fear. We've talked about that faction. After that match, an unnamed guy popped up on the video screen calling for Kevin to chat about Hulkamania. It turns out that was King Curtis, and all we'll get to see the full plan for the Dungeon of Doom next month. Well, Kevin's mentioned a few times that one of his main goals, Arn, in creating the Dungeon of Doom was to bring all of Hogan's foes together. He's shared this with me before on some of the shows that we've done. He wanted to have that one stable and one segment. I thought this was pretty clever, Kevin, to kind of pull all the talent together and have that one stable that would kind of be that powerhouse against Hogan. Did you like this concept?
Yeah, I mean, he had some nasty looking folks, didn't he?
He did.
It was a lair of monsters.
It was. Herman Munster was the only one that wasn't a part of it, I don't think. He had a cast of characters, and now all of a sudden, during the main event, Paul Wight, he makes his first appearance, and as Savage and Hogan are making their entrance, what a moment it is to see Paul Wight in live living color TV here at Slamboree.
Oh God, well, you don't, like I said, You don't see guys like that very often.
You don't, and he was something special, and we know the career that he would go on to have. But looking back, Hogan had quite a few feuds over the previous 10 months. We think about, and we've talked about Flair, the Butcher, Vader. Do you think Hulk was concerned about those not hitting as hard as he wanted, which might have pushed him back to this more Dungeon of Doom, cartoonish style of wrestling? Or was just a booking decision, the whole Dungeon of Doom, and he was like, "Hey, whatever works for you, brother. I'm in." At this point of his career.
Well, I think it was just a ready-made roster of guys you could just keep feeding Hogan, which in the past had worked. He was a giant killer. You know, if you go back and look at his opponents, and when he was with WWF/WWE, he always had monsters to slay. He was the monster slayer. So having all those guys under one roof probably just made it easy.
It did, and that was the plan back then in WCW with Kevin Sullivan, Booker, and he was putting together the stable. Let's talk about the main event as we start to wrap up this month. You have Hogan and Savage against Flair and Vader, as we outlined. It goes over 18 minutes long. It's a wild finish. You miss that double axe handle on Hogan. It ends up hitting Flair instead. It leads to Flair getting pinned after Hogan's leg drop. After the match, though, things escalate quickly. You, Flair, and Vader attack Hogan and Savage. Then we see Angelo Poffo, Macho Man's dad, try to step in to stop the beatdown. Flair ends up hitting Poffo a few times, putting him in the figure four until the Renegade runs in to make the save. It's a chaotic scene, but that's what it felt like kind of the booking was at this point in WCW. And this was Flair's first wrestling match on TV in the U.S. for 7 months. Do you think a finish like this is overbooked with all the interference and all this drama? How do you feel about that?
So what was the finish? Flair got beat?
Yes. You missed a double axe handle, and Hogan hits him instead, and that leads to him getting the Hogan leg drop and being pinned.
Wow. Beating Flair back his first match.
That's right, after 7 months not being on TV.
Makes you do a little Monday morning quarterbacking, doesn't it? Makes you wonder.
Yeah. Well, it does. It feels like he's kind of already coming into okay, Flair's back, cool, but so what? He's already lost his first match back.
Took a lot of steam. I'm sure, steam off of him.
Yeah.
Right away.
Yeah. Yeah, when you're thinking long-term storytelling, that really does not a whole lot for Flair out the gate.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
And then you have Macho Man. He was overly protective of his father, almost just like he was with Elizabeth. Have you ever met Angelo Poffo before? And
I did.
Okay.
And the stories you hear about him are, Randy being tight was nothing like his dad being tight. I mean, but that's where Randy got it. Saved every nickel we ever made. Was really, here's Randy Savage making, good Lord, probably $700,000-800,000 a year, who was staying at the Red Roof. Come on.
Yeah.
Which I guess the rib is on us, because when you're that frugal with all your money, you're never going to run out. So who's the smart guy here and who's not?
Well said, Arn. Listen, all of you that are viewing right now, I see you in the chat. Go ahead, enter questions now. We have some extra time, and I want to make sure that we answer your questions. I will tell you to make sure. Yeah, Andrew's point: 750,000 paid by Slim Jim. So there you go. Slim Jim paying his contract.
There you go.
Get those super chats in as well, and we'll make sure that we get to those as well. But Arn, what a time in the business. You again in the corner for this match, but you did get to wrestle Das Wonder Kid for the TV title. Lots going on here. Paul Wight's now in the company. Dungeon of Doom has been established. And it's an exciting time. I mean, there's the eyes are and the momentum for WCW. It's not anywhere near the NWO. You know, we're not anywhere close to there yet, but it's starting to create a little bit of a buzz, especially with the Big Show showing up. I think that was, the Giant at this time. I think that was exciting.
Yeah, I mean, and I'd have to go back and watch the shows prior to him showing up, the ones after, but did he have that massive single push from day one?
I don't know. They brought him in with the group, but I don't know that he had that push that we would hope that he would have from the start.
Even if you
It could have
held
been
him
stronger.
You could have held him off and let him get him. I'm sure they sent him down to the power plant. Wouldn't have hurt to give him a couple more months and let him get polished and do some vignettes and say, coming, coming, coming. Look what's coming, and just made a bigger single build out of it.
Yeah. Well, we have a couple super chats, so we're going to get to those. Guys, continue to fire your questions in. Now, Darth Payne, I know you said you wanted to save this for Ask Arm, but you paid your money, and we're going to ask your question now. So we'll throw it up there. Great show. He said, I appreciate you saving for the next show if possible. No, we're going to get it to you now. He says, and that's the 88 by 88 Horseman gear was moving. Did he and Tully think it was cool because they had some support versus I don't know if there's a typo there, but what about the merchandise, Arn, in 1988? Did you guys think it was cool to finally see some stuff finally moving for you guys?
Yeah, but it was very minor. There was no. I mean, I think we had a T-shirt or two, and that was it.
Yeah, and then that means, and I went back and looked. It's versus the Midnight Express. Did he and Tully think it was cool because they had some support versus the Midnight Express?
I'm not sure that I understand the question.
Well, we tried our best, Darth, and you know what? He wished they would have had more merch continuing to sell, but if you need to buy merch, you can right now over at onetruesport.com and get this classic Crockett merchandise that I'm sporting. Arn, this is a brand new T-shirt.
Vintage. Definitely vintage. Yeah, they didn't make there was no big deal by 88. If they wanted to have, print some money, it would have been 86, 87 Horsemen.
Sure.
That's when we were really
that was when
hot.
It was hot. That's when it could have been the big bucks.
And even stretching on into 88 a little bit,
Let's see what else we have. We have a super chat that I don't even know that I want to put on the screen right now. We're going to put it on the screen. They paid $5 and we don't even have to answer the question. This guy, Darren Staley, was into this stuff in the 70s and 80s. Which decade had the best nipples? Mailer. He may not answer this question. And you know what? He's not. He's going to stay safe. He will not. I know him like the back of my hand. I had to put it on the screen. You gave us some money. Darren, you're an idiot. Thank you.
Yes, but saying like that, like it was a fact, we don't need to go there, buddy, because it was not a fact.
There you go.
I mean, if we're just looking for shock factor, let's don't do that because it is not true.
Let's see here. And what else do we have? Any other good questions? Arn Anderson, you like wrestling the Road Warriors or Midnight? Who was your
Midnight? My God, who wouldn't? I mean, these were polished team, polished hands. Cornette was incredible asset to those guys and them to him. So it was an honor. I wished I'd have had 6 months more of it.
CG says, does DDT stand for something? After 42 years of watching wrestling, I often wondered if the DDT stood for anything.
You know what? That's a great question that I don't know the answer to.
Yeah.
I don't know. Hey, Jake would be the one that came up with it, right? Jake
Jake
Snake.
Roberts. Yeah.
Maybe it's a question for him.
Yeah. Kevin says, have you and Tully ever faced the Rock and Roll Express?
Oh, God, yeah.
Many times.
With Jim Crockett Promotions, many, many, many times.
Arn,
Loved it.
Go ahead.
Well, I loved it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's custom fit for a great heel champion team. The Rock and Roll Express being the challengers. It's perfect.
We while we have some more folks, we'll give you some more time to throw some stuff in the super chat. But real quick, Arn, I got to ask you, and because it was brought up, the Georgia Bulldogs. Since the last time we were together, they had that tough loss to Alabama, but Alabama then lost to Vanderbilt. And what a crazy time college football is right now.
I think I got to tell you, the Vanderbilt beating Alabama was a shocker.
Can you, like, there were, what, 83rd? If there was a ranking, but my boss was like, Paul, they were 83rd in the country. I'm like, they even rank it down that far? But I just can't even imagine that.
Alabama beating Georgia was not a shocker because Alabama is Alabama.
Yeah.
They have always and will always be a powerhouse. I think Georgia was flat in the first half. I didn't get to watch the game, so I still haven't seen it.
Gotcha.
But they came back in the second half and made a game out of it, apparently. But my God, when I heard the Vanderbilt thing, that blew me away.
That was crazy. And now you were asked as well, how about the chances? What do you think? Georgia, Texas, October 19th.
I think the national championship is Texas to win. But do I think Georgia has the panache to pull in there and upset them? I think they do.
Okay.
And that will put them back in control of their own destiny, because, you know, it's like you don't want to let Texas run the table. That's for sure.
Games in Austin. So there you go. We'll see what happens. Should be a big one. And then last but certainly not least, the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah.
Are you still watching the playoffs at all?
Nah.
Done.
Lost interest.
Yeah.
You know, they did pretty well for all the injuries they had early during the season. They had 4 or 5 of their best players, you know, that they lost. And they had to bring in some guys to plug some holes who did a fair job, but not the kind of job that the regular guys, if they were there, the third baseman, Acuna, our Strider, their fireballer. I mean, there was 4 or 5 guys that just killed us over the long haul.
Well, Arn, it's back to the drawing board for the Braves next year, and a lot of our baseball teams. It's an exciting time. We'll see who ends up in the World Series, and but yeah, trust me, I haven't seen playoffs for my favorite team in decades. So, well, I can't say playoffs. I definitely haven't seen a World Series team in decades for sure. But I'm sure the Braves. Hey, listen, they suffered some serious injuries, and so you get some guys healthy, they'll be right back in the thick of it. But listen, we want to thank you all for being here for the show this week. We had a ton of fun. We're going to be back in 3 weeks, Tuesday, October 29th, 6 Eastern, the Halloween edition of Ask Arn Anything. And Lord knows we're going to bring out all the fun and the crazies for that one. So join us in 3 weeks, October the 29th. I want to mention, I know I already talked about it. We talked about Arn's comic. Paperback still available on Amazon. Arn has them with him every show that he makes. So make sure that you check out his comic book. And My Life as the Enforcer. It's fantastic. Also, check out this merchandise. OneTrueSport.com has all kinds of classic vintage feel t-shirts, as well as sweatshirts and zip-ups, hoodies, and the Four Horsemen jacket has been turned on and is active. We've already had some sales. I was telling Arn when he logged on for the Four Horsemen jacket. So grab yours. They're fantastic quality. And we're really excited about having our vendor back with us that helped create those last year's back again with us. So check it out, onetruesport.com. Arn, thank you so much for doing this with me this week.
Thank you. And hey, once again, thank you to all you heroes who bringing your helicopters and helping Western North Carolina. You guys are true heroes, and I sure appreciate it. Thank you.
There you go. Well said, Arn. On behalf of the enforcer, Arn Anderson, this is Paul Bromwell, and we'll see you in 3 weeks, Tuesday, October 29th, right here for the next Ask Arn Almost Anything. See you soon.